Are you happy with the service offered in different government institutions? Kungabe unelisekile noma uyalujabulela usizo oluthola ezikhungweni zikahulumeni sibala ezibhedlela, iziteshi zamaphoyisa, kwandaba zabantu, kwezenhlalakahle, ezinkantolo, kumnyango wezindlu kanye nokunye. Umbuzo wethu ke lo mbukele namuhla sihanjelwe isekela likaNgqongqoshe womnyango i-Public Service and Administration uDokotela Chanapilane Majake. Sikubingelele sikwamukele ohlelweni i-Asikhulume Let's Talk olungunqa phambili e-SABC. Igama lami ngingubongiwe uMakhumalo wakwazane. Sekukhumbuze ke mbukela ukuthi ungaba ingxenye lolu hlelo ngokusishayela ucingo sizwe imbono noma imibuzo yenu. Inombolo zethu ke zithi 011-714-0677 noma 011-714-0678. Ungabuye futhi usithole kumakhasi ethu okuxhumana ku-Twitter @SABC Izindaba kanye na ku-Facebook SABC Izindaba. Ukuze kube lula ke mbukeli sicela uqale ngo#Asikhulume #SABC News bese ke ubhala umbuzo noma umbono wakho. Asikhulume. Kuyo lenyanga ungqongqoshe womnyango obhekele ezabasebenzi bakahulumeni uNoxolo Kivit enkulumweni yakhe yesabelo mali unxuse yonke iminyango kahulumeni ukuthi isebenzise izabelo mali ukuthuthukisa izidingo zomphakathi. The minister says if all departments utilize their budgets properly, this will ensure that all needs of the communities are met, thus helping government's efforts of building a capable state. Now, before we speak to her deputy, Dr. Chanapilane Majake, let's hear if our viewers are happy with service delivery at government institutions.
Ayikho into kahulumeni engathi hamba kahle. Corruption nengakhulu yabona, especially kubo laba futhi laba abakuyi-government vele, home affairs, ama-police station, le government nje iyogcwele i-corruption kakhulu.
The thing that they offer us, it's so poor. And then the people that are working there at the hospital are so rude to us. They have no respect towards us as patients. They don't respect us. And we just come there because we need a better health. We need better care.
The experience I mean with public services is, I think, 50-50. It's not great. Ziningi izinto abangazishintsha in terms of admin yabo. Having to come in the morning ngabo 6 and leave here at 12, it's very frustrating.
If they were really serious about that, that's something they should have done a long time ago. I into icala manje ukuthi mele balungise in, but yeah, they'll update technology because nakhona when they do that, they'll say, okay, there's a website that's running. It'll take a good 6 months before it runs properly. The first week, it'll give countless issues.
All right, nizwele ukuthi bathini abanye ababukeli. Asikhulume naye ke uDokotela Chanapilane Majake, who's the Deputy Minister of Public Service and Administration, who joins us in studio now. Mama, siyabonga for isikhathi sakho.
Thank you, Bongiwe.
Thank
you for inviting me.
And thank you so much for honoring our
invite. And good evening to the viewers.
Thank you very much. And it's an honor to have you on the show. Let's start talking with what you've heard from the viewers, because we asked them if uyalujabulela usizo oluthola, you know, in various government departments. What do you say to what you've just heard?
Well, listening to the comments, you can hear that the viewers are actually saying there isn't enough that is being done, which would actually be true, because as a government, we know that we are a government that cares. We know that we are a government that has actually given so much. If you look at where we come from within the 30 years in government, because by next year in 2024 will be 30 years, you'd realize that the lives of South Africans have changed. Our people have actually regained their dignity. Government has actually made it a point that it actually makes services to be easily accessible to the people, like the principles of public service, because we have principles of public service that are about really providing a service that is accountable, that is transparent, that is efficient, effective, easy to access, and of course with the pillars of capacity of the state and the resources, that is the money. And when you look at this government, you'd realize that we have really, in many ways, been in the position to bring the services to the people. Looking at water, it wasn't the norm in the past that water would be available through piping across the country. It was only in urban areas. It wasn't the norm that electricity will be available to all citizens in the whole country. It's only now. It wasn't the norm that school would actually be available, or schooling will be available for children free of charge. If you were my age, you'd know that in the past, you have to pay school fees as a parent. You'd have to pay for buy the books. Everything that has got to do with schooling, you'd have to do today. No more school fees. We can even hear people complaining that the books didn't arrive, free books didn't arrive in time, and children eat at school. They are fed. This is one thing that we have actually managed to do to actually prevent us having children who are malnourished. Health is free, free housing, and all of those things. They were about really helping the people who have actually been through so much of atrocities of the past to really gain their dignity. We know this is not enough.
And there are certain things that, spring to mind as you're saying what you're saying. And I'm going to start with the principles of Batopile, for example.
Yes.
It's a reality, though, that when we go to some government departments, it's not Batopile. You get there, sometimes they tell you that they're now on lunch, they're now on a tea break, and when they come back, the service that you even receive is at a snail's pace. So certainly it does look like there's a lot more that might need to be done when it comes to professionalizing how some of these public servants carry themselves.
Yes, indeed, Bongiwe. I normally say every public servant that finds themselves in whatever space in the public office need to understand that they are a servant of the people. If all of the public servants could understand that they are there to serve, it wouldn't be a problem. If Bongiwe gets a job somewhere in a government office, it's not about Bongiwe. It's about Bongiwe coming in to serve South Africans. We need to continue to send that message so that our public servants understand that when they are in office, they are there to come and serve the people of the country. And if all of them can understand that, we're going to find that we have less and less of complaints of people who feel dehumanized when they have to access government service. And this is why we will continue to promote Batopile principle. And if you want to make sense out of Batopile principle, Batopile, that's what human beings, Kopili.
And again,
it's them first before yourself.
Because
yeah.
But what we are seeing now is something completely different.
Yeah.
And think about, yes, you talk about the provision of electricity and ubuaka, the provision yametsi and all of that. These are things that, one would have thought that in 2023, we are still not talking of households that do not have access to clean, safe drinking water. We are not talking of houses that are still, a person who had been on the waiting list of an RDP house since 94 is still waiting in 2023. Where is it all going wrong?
One thing is that the intention of this constitutional democracy is to really try by all means to provide whatever is possible. But there is financial implication to it. And if you look at even the kind of instruments of these blocks that we belong to, SADC, AU, United Nations, BRICS, and all of that, because we have ratified so many of these treaties and conventions as South Africa, what we have to understand is that they've got a financial implication. You're saying there are some households that have not as yet accessed water and electricity, and indeed it's true. But also, our people need to understand that it's all about progressive realization of rights, because water and electricity is part of socio-economic rights that we have promised to give to the people of the country through the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. But it will be, all of that will be progressive enough without really getting a voice that keeps on saying, hurry and get it right. Because, to a large extent, instead of getting a voice that says, yes, we can do it, you hear a voice that says, you hurry and get it right.
Do you understand that voice, though, that is saying, hurry and get it right? Because I think people are becoming somewhat impatient, particularly given the fact that, there's talk that there's money that needs to be allocated to the services. But at the same time, people are hearing about corruption that we also heard about in the Zondo Commission, which is also taking place in the public sector as well. So when people are then getting agitated, do you understand that frustration because they're seeing money being squandered versus services that are not being delivered?
What the people of South Africa needs to understand is that it is this government that has actually, for the first time in South Africa, set up institutions to fight corruption. And maybe we hear so much about corruption because something is being done about corruption. It's this government that will have all these institutions that you hear of. And in South Africa, when somebody complains about something that is about corruption, and they say such and such an officer and so has done this, the first question I ask is, what steps have you taken? Because we've got the public protector, we've got the police, we've got the Hawks, we've got the SIU that is actually operating according to proclamations made by the president. For now, there is what is called the Fusion Center, where the security cluster even come together so that there are no gaps in terms of addressing corruption, because this government is viciously fighting corruption. And it wasn't only about the Zondo Commission. It goes beyond that, because if you look at now in government, what is happening is that we are now even doing a lifestyle audit for public servants, so that where there is unexplained wealth, we manage to come in, and if there are investigations that are necessary, then they should actually take place, and people should be made to account if they've got money that cannot actually be explained as to how they got it.
Would you say, though, you are happy with how, some of the cases are progressing when it comes to corruption, or are you also just as concerned as some South Africans who are saying that it's all good and well to investigate these cases, but they want to see more convictions instead?
I know, especially when it comes to the issue of the Zondo Commission, people feel that there's delay in prosecuting. People they think have been found guilty, and nobody was found guilty. It was just putting together, the commission was putting together information. If there's got to be prosecution, then the prosecution itself must be satisfied enough before they can take action as to whether a matter can be successfully prosecuted.
And Deputy Minister, I'm going to ask us just to hold it for a second. We continue just after the break. Mbugeli, akasithi shelele $8. Siyabuya maduzane. And thank you so much for staying with us. Do you think it is possible to professionalize the public service? Kungabe ucabanga ukuthi izikhungo zikahulumeni zingasebenza njengalezi eziyimele? According to the Public Service and Administration Minister, Ms. Noxolo Kivet, one of the fundamental objectives of the professionalization framework is to ensure that only qualified and competent individuals are appointed to positions of authority. Enkulumweni yakhe uNgqongqoshe uthi kumele kube khona ushintsho olukhulu kwindlela abanye abasebenzi bakahulumeni benza ngayo imisebenzi yabo. Now, before we talk to the Deputy Minister again, akasilalele ukuthi omunye wabalaleli uthi.
There's a lot of things that the government at the moment, they are struggling with a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to the employment of the EPWP. It's a program that government has set up, which they got us contractors and get them in, and they always got, every year they get promises to say, hey, this year and that year they're going to insource the people out of the program to make the people permanent. I am now for 9 years in this program since 2014, and I'm in the program. So with that hope to say one day government will insource the workers and make them permanent.
And we've heard from one of our viewers there. Now, Deputy Minister, kubuhlungu ukuzwa umuntu ekhuluma kanjena ukuthi for him, he would like to be permanent so he can be able to, you know, get access to certain other privileges and be able to even buy a house for ingane zakhe nomndeni wakhe. Ungabe uthini kuwe mangabe uyamlalela umuzwa ukuthi nayi program iWP bebethembile ukuthi bazothathwa ukuthi basebenzele uhulumeni kodwa akwenzeki?
Thank you, Bongiwe. As a government, we are quite conscious and aware of the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequities that continues to affect all the South Africans. And as a government, we continue to try by all means to create opportunities. Imperfect as the opportunities may be, we will continue to create those opportunities. And one other thing that we need to understand is that we have a biggest challenge of population explosion in South Africa. We have unimaginable numbers of people living in South Africa, documented and undocumented. And I'm sure that is a debate of some other day with Minister of Home Affairs. But as a government, one other thing that we actually also encourage is entrepreneurship in order for employment to actually then be created by people actually establishing businesses.
That comes with the challenge of funding, though.
It has a challenge of funding, but remember, as government, we also have got departments and offices that are actually providing grants for startups. And which is what we need to continue to send as a message to South Africans to say that this is possible. And coming back to ourselves in terms of the labor force, we are actually a government that cares. And if you can look at the conditions of service that government servants have got, if you look at the fact that for now, you've just mentioned the professionalization of public service that requires qualifications and the necessary competencies. We don't just talk about it. We provide bursaries to the public servants so that they can go and upgrade themselves. We have the National School of Government that on an ongoing basis continue to train public servants so that they can have the necessary competencies for whatever
work. And on that note, pardon me for coming in there, you're also contending, though, with an issue that around 1,823 of your senior managers within the public service have no qualifications, and some of them are in the national government, others in the provincial government. So it doesn't look like they're possibly taking up this offer.
It's a matter that is still being looked at. We are conscious of it, and for now, because of the standards that we're actually setting now, we are hoping that in the future it will be something of the past.
And kodwa kukhona okunye futhi Ngqongqoshe, because okunye is the issue around technology. Abantu mabevakashela izikhungo zikahulumeni, they are often told offline, come back tomorrow, the system's offline and all of that. Yini eniyenzayo to try and improve the systems, and how easy is it to do, given the fact that, you know, some of the technological advances may need you to even have extra resources?
E-governance is what we actually also promote as the Department of Public Service and Administration, because it's one of the ways that can actually, through technology, manage to really help to fast-track business in government, to provide more efficient and effective services for government. And you're saying that sometimes people go to offices and they find that the offices are offline. Yes, it's possible. In some instances, offices might be offline. You go to the bank sometimes and you find that the bank itself is offline. It will be a problem if the bank is offline every day. But if for once in a while there is that challenge, it's a challenge that can be overcome. And normally if a service point is offline, it wouldn't be for the whole day. We imagine, unless something is grossly wrong. But the intention of the government is to really provide e-governance so that we can be in the position to manage to provide services faster. That's why we have also the Center for Public Service Innovation, which is a center that promotes innovative ideas as to what to do with the challenges we actually come across in service point.
And I'm going to just talk about that in just a second, but ngizocela ukuthi nje siphumule kancane sike sithi ukuphuza amanzi sibuye futhi sikhulume sesiphetha ngifuna sibheke ukuthi indaba yama queues ninqoba kanjani ngoba baningi abantu abasafika ezikhungweni zenu bafika ekseni bahambe ntambama ninqoba kanjani into enjalo babukele ake sithi shelele eDolo siyabuya futhi. Mbukeli sesiphetha ake sibheke isombululo zalenkinga kusekela ngqongqoshe womnyango iPublic Service and Administration uDokotela uChana Pelane Majeke ake sizwe ukuthi bathini ababukeli bona.
Abayenza iplan at least ba-add staff bacasha abantu kusebenzeke bafowethu.
What will help is like manje bengizela ukuzothatha ama-blood tests but ngihlale report. So I think if bangasebenzisana as hospitals ukuthi okay wena no report ithatha amagazi at whatever hospital that's closer to you, and then they find a way of linking my bloods to this side because I'm a doctor with thyroid. I've got thyroid. My doctor with thyroid, aware Kongali. So I'm forced to come to Parktown because of the services that they have with the chronic illness in Nayo. So I think that would be a great link between all the government hospitals.
Ake sizwe futhi ukuthi nithini emakhasini okuxhumana sizwe nje ukuthi niqala ngokuthini siqale ngo lockdown giants uthi cha asiltholi bahlale besitshela ngama tea breaks 45 minutes lunch 1.5 hours bakutshele ukuthi bafuna isibalo esingaka bayezenzela bandla kodwa ke ngoba sibancengile sizothula. Ophilana uthi ngike ngibone ezikhungweni zikahulumeni kunale chat ebhalwe bathupili principles ngibese ngiyibuza ukuthi kodwa abasebenzi bazinika kodwa isikhathi ukuyifunda le yanto bayiqonde ngoba wow bayeyisa abantu abasebenzela ugovernment angikhathali. Uzwelihle uthi cha mina angeneme nje nakancane indlela abasiphatha ngayo abasebenzi beyikhungo zikahulumeni ayiyinhle nje futhi ayijabulisi ngoba abanye babo ngathi baphoqiwe ukwenza lo msebenzi noma eksiza uzoqala ngemibuzo ongenazo impendulo zayo. Sometimes ugcine ungasizakalanga banempakamo too much labantu futhi babukelana phansi abasazi ukuthi siyini. Sekela ngqongqoshe uzwele, how do you fix this?
Hayi ngizwele ebongiwe if abantu bethu bane impakamo kakhulu. This is not the intention of this government, which means they are misrepresenting the government. Ke government leng gore e rata batho e promoter principle ya batho pele. And o tseneng ka mogare ga office ya government o tla ba dira sentle ha dira ka the principles about pele, because we're never going to really manage to get to where we want to as a country if we don't hold hands and move together.
Yanong baba report kai because kana kwengwe o thola gore o ya ko supervising elenteng o try go reporta motho wa teng a gona sepe se tsagalang mo gena so re ba reporta kai hele gore re fitla mole ba ikukumeditse ba iketsa gore ba retsa gore re ikutlo re se welcome mo di servicing tsa government.
There's a number of institutions government in Alintsona depending on the type of problem you've got. Hona le bo public protector care. Hona le bo Commission for Gender Equality if the issue has got to do with women and gender empowerment. Hona le South African Human Rights Commission. Hona le if you feel that your rights have been violated, then we can report a thing. On the body commission on cultural, religious, and linguistic rights. So we've actually set up measures and institutions that would actually help to redress whatever problems that South Africans encounter. Hartlako seponiseng renali iPad, yes. How case then you can actually go to such offices. What it means is that more and more we need to probably do more awareness programs so that people don't just complain. they take steps to use the same offices that this government has created. In government offices, they come across people who don't do the right things.
And they also get people who update them on their complaints and finalize their complaints. But very briefly, we've got, lesser time now. But let's talk about, very quickly, how do you begin to address the issues yama-queues? Ngoba abantu bayafika kube undendende kalayini behlale mhlambe ekseni esibhedlela baze baphume ntambama.
And maybe before we get to that, there's one of the commenters who said, why don't they do this and that with blood instead of, blood being drawn and you go to this place? And I said to myself, as I'm listening to her, this is what we want. We want solutions. And she might be talking about this and thinking it's something that doesn't really matter, or it's something that is not possible to happen. And this is why we've got the Center for Public Service Innovation. That center listens to you when you've got an innovative idea in order for the center to make it possible to implement. And I'm sure the other day when I was talking to you, you remember I was talking about somebody who had a frustration about the issue of the government mortuary, and it's somebody from outside government that came with that concept. And now it's a concept that is working, is being rolled out across the country. And indeed, the issue of queues is a problem, but we have had some innovative ideas as to also how to deal with queues. And we are still looking at better ways of dealing with queues, because we know that queues are a challenge. If you want to begin to have the recipients of services very unhappy, begin with long queues, and which is what we discourage as government.
And I hope you'll take me when those, those innovations are being implemented, so we and the viewers can be able to see for ourselves firsthand what is going on. But thank you for stopping by. We've run out of time. Siyabonga kakhulu isikhathi sakho, Sekela Ngqongqoshe. We do appreciate your time. Bukeli, kubonakala ngathi inkinga zemnyango kahulumeni ziningi, kanti nokuyixazulula kusazoba umqansa. Kodwa njengoba umzulu Sekela Ngqongqoshe uthi kuningi abakwenzayo okubhekelela lezi inkinga. Sibonge kini babukeli nehambeli zethu kakhulu ukuthi nibe nathi namhlanje. Udokotela uThana Pilane Majake ongusekela ngqongqoshe ku Department ye Public Service and Administration. Bukela asiqhubeke emakhasini okuxhumana sikhulume. Umakhumalo wakwazana nethimba le Asikhulume, let's talk sithi ayixabene.